I thought it was just an ordinary train, but it turned out to be a train bound for hell. And I'm the only person on board who knows all the rules. Want to get off alive? Shoo, be quiet, sit still, don't move, don't stare. A twinge of pain radiated through my shoulder. For the 101st time, I regretted taking this job, so far from home. The commute didn't just require transfers. Each connection had painfully long waits. At this moment, I had just stepped off the previous train and was sitting in the waiting hall. The thought of having to stay another full 3 hours made my shoulders ache even more. Attention passengers, this is K444 train from Yian Station to Ningyong Station. Ticket check is about to end. Please proceed to the platform. Ningyong Station? Isn't that my destination? I looked up at the big screen. K444 train. How did I not notice it before? The number sounded a little ominous, and the thought of waiting another 3 hours was despairing. I couldn't hesitate any longer. If I didn't decide now, they'd stop checking tickets soon, and then there'd be no way to change. I acted immediately, opened the app, changed the reservation, and rushed for the ticket gate. As soon as I went downstairs, I saw the green-bodied train waiting at the platform. 1, 2, 3, found it, train number 4. A attendant in a deep blue uniform stood by the carriage door. She looked to be in her 20s, her makeup precise, a smile at the corner of her mouth. I was about to take out my ID when she spoke first. You can board first. At the same time, she handed me a somewhat worn little booklet. The cover read passenger code. I don't remember trains having this before. When my fingertips brushed the manual, a coldness seeped into my skin. I instinctively tried to pull back, but the attendant grabbed my hand and forced the booklet into it. Remember to sit in your assigned seat, the attendant added, his smile never wavering. The tickets will be checked on board after departure. All right, thank you. I swallowed the strange feeling in my chest and hurried onto the train. As soon as I stepped in, a piercing argument met my ears. Are you being reasonable? Seat 68 is mine. It's clearly written on the ticket. A girl with a ponytail snapped at a burly middle-aged aunt. The aunt sat as steady as a mountain, not even lifting an eyelid, scrolling short videos with the volume cranked up. Oh, what are you yelling about? I'm already seated. Look, aren't there empty seats around? She impatiently flicked her chin toward the surrounding area. Just sit anywhere, you stubborn mule. The girl's eyes reddened with anger. She glanced around. Indeed, there were many empty seats. In the end, she gave up arguing with the aunt, dragged her luggage, and flopped down heavily into seat 62, a few seats diagonally ahead. What rotten luck to run into someone so unreasonable. I shook my head inwardly, withdrew my gaze, and made my way to my seat. Good news, no one was sitting in my seat. Bad news. On the seat opposite, an auntie in flip-flops had, as if oblivious to others, propped her pair of feet, emitting a strong, sour stench, up on the seat next to me. A wordless smell hit my nostrils and my stomach churned. I instantly regretted my impulsive decision to change my reservation. How should I sit in this seat? Maybe I should just move to another empty spot. But somehow, the attendant's words, "Remember to sit in your assigned seat," kept ringing in my ears. Fine, I'll just endure it. I held my breath, forced myself into my seat, pulled out my phone to distract myself, only to find my data had already been nearly used up on the last ride. Great, even my only diversion was gone. My senses were forced to focus on that unavoidable stench, and each second became agony. I had to find another way to shift my attention. My eyes fell on the little passenger code booklet in my hand. I opened it. Rule 1. Please sit in the seat assigned to you. If you do not have a corresponding seat ticket, the attendant has the right to remove you from the train. Rule 2. Do not place items that do not belong to the seat on the seat. Otherwise, the cleaning staff will treat them as trash and remove them. Rule 3. Smoking is prohibited in any area of the train. Smoking is harmful to life and health. Rule 4. Please keep quiet. Do not make loud noises that may disturb other passengers. Rule 5. When the train stops at a platform, be sure to confirm that the platform name matches your destination. If it does not, do not get off because you will not have another chance to board. Rule 6. During the journey, you may ask the attendant any questions at any time. But remember that the attendant will only be wearing a dark blue uniform. These rules seemed like ordinary train regulations, yet for some reason they stirred an inexplicable unease. Maybe it was because I was too exhausted, or perhaps it was the stench of the middle-aged woman's feet across from me that had clouded my mind. Help! I really don't want to stay in this seat for another second. Maybe I should change seats? Just as I was about to get up, a sweet voice sounded. All passengers, please be seated and prepare your identification. Ticket inspection will begin now. Let's wait until the tickets are checked. The attendant approached a young man, wearing glasses first. He calmly handed over his ID. The attendant checked it and returned it with a smile. The man with glasses nodded slightly, then lowered his head and went back to staring at his computer, seeming indifferent to everything around him. The ticket checking continued. Soon it was the turn of the aunt sitting in seat 68. Ma'am, please show your ID. The aunt rolled her eyes, impatiently put her phone down, and after rummaging in her bag for a long time, finally pulled out her ID and slapped it on the small table. Here. The attendant picked up the ID and scanned it, his smile unchanged in the least. Ma'am, your seat is number 95. This is not your seat. Please get off. Get off. The aunt raised her voice, spittle nearly spraying the attendant's face. Are you crazy? It's not like I don't have a ticket. Can I just switch seats? She glanced toward seat 62. The girl who actually had ticket 68 wasn't there. She seemed to have gone to the restroom. Please get out of the car, the attendant repeated. What are you joking about? How can we get out when the car is moving? Right. The car was already moving. How can we get out? I found out very soon. The attendant actually opened the door directly. For some reason, the scenery outside blurred past at high speed. Clearly the vehicle was moving. Yet there wasn't a breath of wind inside the carriage. Outside's going so fast, how could I? The aunt's question cut off abruptly. The attendant's hand lengthened and thinned, in an instant piercing the aunt's chest. Blood spurted. Even the seat was pierced. With a flick of that alien arm, as if discarding a piece of trash, she hurled the still twitching, massive body out of the car. The door slammed shut with a clang. The attendant shook that strange arm. Within seconds, it returned to normal. She then drew a pristine white tissue from her pocket and leisurely wiped the blood from her hand. She looked at the passengers, frozen in terror. Her face held the same unchanging smile, her voice soft and pleasant. Ticket inspection continues. Please note, make sure you sit in your assigned seat. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood. I clamped my hand over my mouth, cold sweat soaking my clothes, my teeth chattering uncontrollably. The middle-aged woman across had already pulled her feet back onto the seat, trembling like a sieve. A middle-aged man in the back row, having witnessed that bloody scene, looked terrified. Seizing the moment the attendant had her back turned to wipe her hands, he stood up, hunched over, trying to slip away from the carriage without a sound. The attendant spun around in an instant, her gaze locking precisely on him in the aisle. Sir, where are you going? The man's lips trembled. I'm going to the restroom. Please show your ID first. The attendant smiled as she stepped toward him. I missed my stop. So, no ticket? The attendant's smile seemed to deepen. No, wait. I'll buy a ticket. I'll buy one right now. He backed away in panic. I'm afraid not, sir. This train doesn't handle ticket purchases on board. The hand that had just recovered rose again. No. A sharp arm slid into his body. He didn't even have time to struggle. The attendant opened the door, tossed the corpse, and closed it with practiced ease. Please remain quiet. The attendant scanned the passengers who were nearly fainting. His voice was gentle, yet carried absolute menace. Ticket checks will continue. Only suppressed breathing remained in the carriage. No one dared move. No one dared make a sound. When the attendant stepped up to me, I almost collapsed into my seat, trembling as I handed over my documents. After checking them, she smiled and returned my ID. If you don't follow the rules, you really will die. At that moment, the girl who had gone to the restroom came back. The girl found the silence on the train a little strange. Ticket, please. May I see your ID? Which seat are you in? Seat 68. The girl jumped, hurriedly handing over her ID. The attendant scanned it and handed it back. Okay, please return to your own seat. She took back her ID and just as she lifted her foot, froze. Her face went deathly pale as she stared at seat 68, the grotesque hole in the backrest and the splattered blood around it, and nearly screamed. Is there a problem? No, no. She didn't know what had happened, but the train's eerie atmosphere and the bloodstains on the seat made her instinctively feel that something was wrong. She stiffly shifted her feet and moved towards seat 62, where she had been sitting before. Crap, sat in the wrong seat? That was no different from asking for death. Warn her. What if speaking gets me judged for not staying quiet? She was about to walk past, so I grabbed the hem of her clothes. She twisted around to look at me in alarm. You have to sit in your own seat, I whispered, my gaze fixed on that navy figure a few meters away. The waitress continued her work, ignoring my move. I guessed right. I had suspected earlier that these rules were almost the same as ordinary train regulations, except that the consequences for breaking them were far more severe. So I wondered whether behaviors permitted on a regular train, like speaking quietly, might be allowed here. In fact, that proved to be the case. But up there, the girl's voice wavered with tears as she looked fearfully at the bloodstained seat. At that moment, the attendant seemed to sense something. Without any warning, his movements froze, and his head turned bit by bit in an inhuman way. That face wore the same unchanging smile, his gaze glued to us, a surfacing of unabashed malice and a hair-raising expectation within it. The girl stiffened instantly, her breathing slowing. She almost closed her eyes as she collapsed into seat number 68, soaked in blood, her hands clawing the armrests so tightly her knuckles went white from the strain. The attendant's eyes seemed to flicker slightly the moment the girl sat down, a barely perceptible trace of disappointment passing through them. She said nothing further, keeping that dreadful smile, and continued checking tickets until she vanished toward the end of the carriage. What on earth is going on? The girl's voice trembled with the relief of having escaped a disaster. She still dared not look at the bloody hole beside her. Our seats faced back to back, which made it a little easier for us to communicate. I told her in a low voice what had just happened on the train. I meant to take out the copy of the passenger's code, but found the table clear. It was gone. When did that happen? What's wrong? Nothing. A chill washed over me. Instinctively, I hid the matter of the passenger code. With my conversation with the girl now setting a precedent, tentative whispers began to appear on the train. Although the attendants didn't react to ordinary chatter, everyone spoke cautiously, afraid that a careless word might brush against the red line of death. What on earth is happening? A boy who looked like a student said in a weak voice. Is that some kind of monster? Yeah, her hand just now. That was not human, a young mother echoed, her fingers tightening unconsciously until the child in her arms whimpered softly. She hurriedly clapped a hand over the child's mouth, glancing in terror at the attendant standing in the train's connector, grateful that she hadn't been noticed. Did we board some haunted train? In a corner, a girl buried her face in her boyfriend's shoulder in fright. He patted her back and tried to comfort her in a low voice. There are no ghosts. He froze mid-sentence. If it wasn't ghosts, then what was all this they were experiencing? A man in a suit fumbled frantically for his phone, fingers trembling as he swiped the screen. The next second, his face went hollow with despair. No signal, not a single bar. Fear rippled through the crowd. The middle-aged woman sitting opposite me was less frightened now and put her feet up again. At that moment, the bespectacled man at the first ticket-checking station finally looked up from his computer. He pushed his glasses up and swept his gaze over the restless people. Everyone calmed down. The urgent task is to find a solution. It seems the attendant only kills those not sitting in their own seats. They won't kill at random. No, she killed those who broke the rules. I was certain because when the girl had just come back, she wasn't in her seat. The attendant hadn't acted immediately, but waited for her to sit down. So she killed whoever violated Rule 1. Why did no one think of that passenger code? Before I could think, a sharp sting of smoke drew everyone's attention. A middle-aged man irritably took out a cigarette and lit it. Someone reminded him, "Go smoke near the connector. 2 people are already dead. Who cares about those damn rules?" The man snapped, took a big drag, and exhaled. The smoke looked defiantly provocative in the deathly quiet train. My heart dropped. Rule 3. Smoking is prohibited in any area of the train. Smoking is harmful to life and health. I wanted to warn him, but earlier, when someone told the girl to sit down, it could be passed off as the attendant saying, "Please return to your seat." But now, what am I supposed to say? More importantly, I scanned the passengers in the train quickly. Many showed displeasure at the uncle's smoking, yet not a single person looked worried. In the earlier murmurs, no one mentioned the odd booklet the attendant had handed out. Even if at first it seemed like an ordinary pamphlet, after what had happened you would think someone would remember it. Yet now, it was as if none of them had received it at all. Could it be that only I received that passenger's code? Just as I hesitated, the cigarette uncle began to cough violently. The sound was wrenching, clearly not from smoke in his throat. His face flushed red visibly. He flailed his arms in terror. The smoke he just exhaled did not disperse, but, as if alive, coiled around his body, tightening and biting into his flesh. The uncle tried desperately to tear the smoke away, but it was all in vain. The struggling and the screams stopped abruptly. Those eyes were frozen with fear and pain. The body slammed heavily to the ground and lay still, not moving at all. Another person dead. The shadow of death descended again. The fear that had loosened a little after the brief conversation spread among the survivors with even greater ferocity. How exactly do we avoid dying? Low sobs, rapid disordered gasps, uncontrollable dry heaves, even more chaotic than before. The train was no longer a train, but a bomb whose detonation time was unknown. He didn't have to die. If only it weren't for a light touch on my shoulder made me start. I turned to see girl number 68. She looked terrified, but perhaps because I felt guilty, in her helpless eyes I saw a faint, tentative question. Why is this happening? What are we supposed to do? I should tell everyone. No one else should die out of ignorance, even if it means exposing my secret. However, just as I was about to speak, "Waiter!" The bespectacled man's voice rang out. He was standing at the train's connector, staring straight at the attendant's sweet smile. "Are there any special rules or things passengers on this train need to be aware of and follow?" His question was precise and direct, clearly seeking a clear survival guide. Right. Everyone had been scared into silence and had forgotten they could ask the attendant, even though the attendant didn't seem quite normal. The attendant walked slowly into the carriage and pointed at the wall. "Oh yes. What you must follow is exactly what every train should do." Everyone followed her finger and looked in the direction she indicated, seeing a rider notice posted on the train wall. 1. Please sit in your assigned seat. 2. Keep the train clean. Do not place miscellaneous items on the seats. 3. No smoking anywhere on the train. 4. Please keep quiet and do not make loud noises. 5. Please disembark promptly when the train arrives at the station. 6. If you have any questions during the journey, please consult the train staff. Wonderful. Although much briefer than that passenger code, after the terrifying scene they had just experienced, they would surely follow these rules. That way I wouldn't have to risk bringing up that strange booklet. His gaze traveled over the uncle's corpse on the floor. "Sorry, I do apologize, but I still prefer not to be noticed." Rule number 2, keep the train tidy. Could you clarify what that specifically means? Like right now, the man with glasses paused delicately, not stating it outright, but the implication was clear. Would this count as tidy? Yeah, what does tidy even mean? A train with a body lying there, soaked in blood. How could that possibly be called tidy? If that violates Rule 2, wouldn't that mean all of us would be judged as having failed to keep the train tidy, and, therefore, couldn't survive? The momentary relaxation in my chest was once again surrounded by fear. Previously, death could at least be blamed on individual behavior, but if the environment itself is judged to be in violation, passengers need not worry. The attendant's smile remained impeccably perfect. Everyone just needs to make sure not to pile clutter on the seats. Cleaning staff will be coming shortly to tidy up the train. Rest assured, we will provide you with the highest quality service. If this counts as the highest quality service, then there shouldn't be any place where the service could be considered poor, right? I couldn't help but grumble inwardly, and she said I could rest assured. But how could I possibly relax? On this hellish train, the very word cleaner carried an ominous weight. What would it be? Another monster in uniform? Or something more uncanny? Was it only trash that it cleaned? As the attendant had said, it wasn't long before the cleaner appeared, pushing a cart that looked very old, pitted with rust and screeching on the floor. She was dressed somewhat clumsily, her face hidden by a mask, yet her movements were unervingly swift. She roughly stuffed the still warm body into a heavy black plastic bag, placed it back on the cart, and then scrubbed hard at the blood-stained seat and floor. But the blood had already seeped into the upholstery, and no matter what she did, the stain remained. Finished cleaning? I held my breath, praying she would leave quickly. She hadn't left. She was coming this way. She was walking toward me. All I could hear was my own frantic heartbeat and the dry rasp of wheels rolling on the ground. What did I do wrong? Rules. Which rule did I break? I ransacked my mind. The only thing I could think of related to the cleaner was one item. Rule 2. Do not place any items that do not belong to the seat on the seat. Otherwise, the cleaner will treat them as trash and dispose of them. What are items that do not belong to the seat? There's only me on my seat. If it's because of that, why is it aimed only at me? What about the others? This isn't fair. Everyone else is clearly in their seats. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound of the wheels grew ever clearer. At last, the cart carrying the corpse stopped, right beside my seat. The cleaner bent down, reaching out. The heavy stench of blood hit my nostrils. Just when I thought I was done for, unexpectedly those hands reached past me. Not me. I hadn't had time to feel relieved when I saw the cleaner clamp his hands onto the feet of the auntie sitting opposite me, who let out a terrified scream and struggled. SSSHHH. With an expressionless face, the cleaner tore the auntie's foot off the seat, blood gushing out, even splattering onto my clothes. So this was something that didn't belong to the seat. The train was deathly silent, broken only by the auntie's agonized moans and the soft swish of the cleaner wiping. Everyone finally understood the terrifying meaning of do not place items on the seat. No one dared speak a word or make a move, afraid of breaking even the smallest rule. After the cleaner left, I trembled as I unlocked my phone. Next stop, it should be here any moment, right? I just had to hang on until I could get off, if this strange train would actually stop at the station. Clang! The train stopped without warning, and the tremendous inertia sent everyone pitching forward. Are we at the station? But outside the window, there was only a dense darkness. No platform, no lights, nothing at all. Just then, the attendant reappeared. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not panic. The train has not yet arrived. This is a temporary stop. She paused, as if savoring the passenger's fear. To prevent you from becoming bored while you wait, we will provide some entertaining little games to help pass the time. What to do? I have no idea about this at all. Suddenly a chill brushed my hand. Looking down, it was the passenger code that had mysteriously disappeared before. It had reappeared. I cast a quick glance around with my peripheral vision. Everyone's attention was fixed on the attendant's words. No one noticed my oddness. I gently opened that passenger code. The train may sometimes encounter special situations and need to stop temporarily. Do not worry. Our staff will provide you with various games. Below is the list of games. 1. Truth or Dare. 2. Story Chain. 3. Pictionary, you draw, I guess. 4. Answering irrelevantly. Note, the staff will usually choose the most suitable games, but if you want to switch, you can ask at any time. Each game has been crafted with immense care, so we sincerely hope every passenger will take an active part. We believe it will surely give you an unforgettable travel experience. The attendant's voice continued. They're very simple games, honest truth or dare. Everyone's probably played it before, right? We'll be giving out small gifts when it's over. Of course, we fully respect passengers' personal wishes. If you don't want to participate, that's fine too. Are you going to join? The girl in seat 68 whispered, her voice trembling. I don't dare play. This surely isn't an ordinary game. Nope. The consequences of quitting will be severe. The meaning of the passenger code couldn't be clearer. Participation is mandatory. What? The girl leaned toward me. I reflexively tried to hide the manual behind me, but to my surprise it vanished again. The girl looked at my empty hands, her expression changing slightly. Do you know something? Before I could speak, a voice quivered with tears. I don't want to play. Passenger, are you sure you want to opt out? Yes. That's such a shame. We really put a lot of care into preparing this. The attendant said regretfully, but the smile on his face widened as his arm stretched in again, probing into that body. Well then, take a good rest. Anyone else want to give up? To give up is to die. Who would dare give up? Thank you all for your enthusiastic participation. Any other questions? If not, we'll start the game. I want to ask when the train will start. It was the man with glasses. Even now, he still seemed remarkably composed. The question struck at everyone's core. Everyone held their breath and looked at the attendant. Regarding the departure time, I'm sorry, but at present the conditions for departure have not been met. Please be patient and wait. Her words were like a fog. Instead of bringing hope, they implanted a deeper fear in everyone's hearts. What exactly were the departure conditions? Were they the usual requirements for a train to run? Or were they related to us? Looks like there are no other questions. Then, the game officially begins. The attendant's finger made a slight point in the air, and a spinner and a box appeared out of nowhere. The order will be decided by it. From the attendant's words, I pieced together the rules. The spinner determines the order of play, and the attendant will participate as well. The chosen player picks truth or dare. If they choose dare, they draw a specific challenge from a box. If they choose truth, the spinner is used again to decide who asks the question. If the game has failed, then one must go to rest. The first player was the mother holding a child. Truth. The spinner turned, and I was chosen as the one to be asked. Do you have children? I thought this question should be easy to answer. No. No. What? I stared at her in shock. She avoided my gaze. She was a trafficker. That child was not hers. The game went on, and the others all chose truth as well. After all, no one dared to gamble on what a dare might be. But truth was far more terrifying than anyone had imagined. The boy who looked like a model student was the ringleader of school bullying. The couple cuddling together. The boyfriend manipulated multiple girls into spending money on him. The girlfriend tolerated his behavior and, out of jealousy, killed many people. The impeccably dressed elite man was actually a fraudster. There wasn't a single good person here. The game continued, and when it came to girl number 68, she was about to speak when the attendant cut in. Why does everyone keep picking truth? How boring. Isn't that wasting our carefully prepared dares? Let's add a new rule. From now on, for people in a row are forbidden from choosing truth. How could this be? The girl's face went ashen, but she could only tremble as she drew a slip of paper from the box. Luckily, it was simple. Count from 1 to 100 without pausing. She completed the dare and breathed a sigh of relief, collapsing into her seat. The spinner kept turning. It landed on the bespectacled man. There weren't yet 3 truths asked, but he didn't hesitate and chose dare. Why? Out of consideration for the people after him? Impossible. What kind of truth could make him risk-averse enough to pick a dare? He wasn't that lucky. The slip read, "Destroy your left eye." Without a moment's hesitation, he took off his glasses, drove a finger into the socket, ripped out the bleeding eyeball, and threw it to the floor. The eye rolled across the ground, leaving a streak of blood. The spinner turned again. The next player was me. No question about it. Truth. This time the one asking was the waiter. The attendant watched me with keen interest. Under her gaze, I had nowhere to hide. So, dear passenger, tell me, what kind of sinner do you think can be forgiven? My mind went blank. Why was she asking this? What did she know? I forced myself to stay calm. I think if the person's offense isn't too serious, and they're young and immature, and they don't repeat the mistake, then they can be forgiven. I tried to answer by legal standards. I thought that sounded reasonable. Of course, the secret wish in the back of my mind was exactly the same. My gaze swept over the child in that mother's arms, then to girl number 68 behind me. She looked at me with a somewhat bewildered helplessness. Someone without civil capacity like that, even if they make a mistake, if they're truly willing to repent and make amends for the errors born of their ignorance, Shouldn't they be given a chance? The waiter gave a meaningful smile, said nothing, and the pointer spun again. This time the player was the waiter. I'll choose truth. She gave the wheel a gentle spin, and it finally stopped on the man with glasses. Blood still seeped from his left eye socket. Miss Waiter, my question is, what kind of sinner do you think can be forgiven? What is he doing? Simply checking whether he can ask the same question? No, that's not it. How could he squander the chance to ask because of that? You must have noticed, too, this carriage is filled with sinners. He's testing the attendant's standards. He wants to know what kind of crime can be forgiven, to find a slim hope of survival. But he is wrong, gravely wrong. Whether a sin can be forgiven has never been up to the attendant. What an interesting question. The attendant's smile didn't change a bit, perhaps even growing more pleased. My idea is simple. Sinners do not deserve forgiveness. The game continued until the pointer stopped on a man whose face had gone ashen. 3 people ahead of him had already chosen truth. He had no choice. He reached into the box, drew a slip of paper, glanced at it, and then threw it away. No, impossible. I can't do this. The paper drifted to the floor. On it were the words, tear off both hands. I won't do it. The man completely broke down. He sprang up and, like a madman, fled the carriage. A piercing, miserable scream came from the adjacent carriage, then cut off abruptly. At that moment, the attendant said in a cheerful tone, "Departure conditions have been met. Please sit tight and hold on. The train is about to depart. The game is over." As she spoke, the carriage gave a long, absent tremor. The train moved. Inside it was deathly silent. An uncontrollable thought sprang into my mind. Could a person's death be the condition for the train's start? If so, could we still arrive alive? In the suffocating silence, the next station arrived. Outside the window, the lights were bright, and there were passengers. It looked exactly like an ordinary platform. No one dared to move. The train doors opened, and the passengers on the platform walked into the carriage as if nothing were amiss. The clamor of voices, the rolling of suitcases, everything was so ordinary. Are we getting off? Everyone hesitated. Nobody knew what would happen if they got off, and staying on the train seemed even more lifeless. The man with glasses stood up and walked toward the train connection, asking the attendant, "Can we get off now?" "Of course." Hearing the affirmative, many people, as if clutching at a straw, couldn't wait and surged toward the doors. After all, the attendant had seemed terrifying before, but had never lied. But I knew we couldn't get off. I looked at the attendant's uniform and realized it had turned red without my noticing when. Rule 5. When the train stops at platform, be sure to confirm that the platform name matches your destination. If it doesn't, do not get off, because you will not have another chance aboard. Rule 6. If you have any questions during the journey, you may ask the attendants at any time. But remember that the attendants will only be wearing dark blue uniforms. My stop hadn't arrived yet. I couldn't go down. Those people were probably not on this train either. Getting off would only lead to a dead end. The girl behind me watched the restless crowd and couldn't contain herself. She began to stand. I grabbed her. "Don't get off. Is this the station on your ticket? Still worrying about this now?" She shrugged my hand off and, a little angrily, pointed at the people who had just gotten off the platform. "Look, they all got off fine." She accused me, and I felt annoyed, regretting my own goodwill. Was I supposed to explain the rules to her? Those more detailed rules? I couldn't possibly tell her. Maybe I really was wrong. I shouldn't have meddled from the start. "Then you get off." She froze in place and, in the end, didn't move. The door closed and the train started. I watched the people inside the carriage. Besides the 2 of us, there were a few others who hadn't gotten off. And unexpectedly, the man with glasses stayed too. His remaining right eye stared at me, so I immediately looked away. New passengers brought noise. Someone blared videos loudly. Another sprawled across an entire row of seats, hands swirling with cigarette smoke. That wasn't according to the rules, but no one reminded them. The survivors' eyes were hollow, and they turned a blind eye to the new passengers' violations. A warped kind of luck. If they broke the rules and nothing happened, didn't that mean we really had left those strange incidents behind? Then we could get off at the next stop, truly escaping the danger. None of the imagined outcomes occurred. The rule breakers didn't die, and the next station never came. The train sped through endless darkness. At first, the newly boarded passengers were still relaxed. Some even complained, "Why is the train late again?" But an hour passed, then two, and the lights and shadows of the platform never appeared again. "What's going on? Why won't this damn train stop? I have to sign a contract." "Yeah, how long has it been?" "Waiter. Where's the waiter? When do we arrive?" Irritation and panic spread through the train like a virus. The complaints on the faces of the new passengers gradually gave way to fear. The surviving veteran passengers looked even worse. Having endured the bloody game, they had allowed themselves to believe they had glimpsed normal, to believe the new passengers' safety meant the danger was over. But now, this endless journey utterly crushed their sense of luck. "Liars, damn." Girl number 68 curled up in her seat, staring blankly at the floor, murmuring to herself as her body trembled slightly. Just then, the bespectacled man with only one eye suddenly stood up. His remaining right eye, now shot through with bloodshot veins, had lost the composure it had worn before. Only a madness carved out by prolonged fear and the torment of the unknown remained. His gaze was fixed on me and girl number 68. "Why? Why do you always seem to know the rules? Why didn't you get off then? If it weren't for you, I would have gotten off just now." All the passengers turned to look with a hiss, their eyes full of anger. The new riders, though unsure of the particulars, sensed that we might be hiding something and regarded us with ill will. I don't think they really understood the bespectacled man's accusations. It's just that, come what may, they needed someone to vent their anger at. Before I could even gather my thoughts, the girl next to me shouted, "It's her!" She sprang up from her seat, thrusting out a finger with all her might to point at me. Her face contorted. "Every time it's her. She pulled me back, so I couldn't get off. She knew about those inexplicable rules. She's the reason we're trapped in this damned place. It's all her fault." I turned to look at her in disbelief. I saved her, and she betrayed me. If it weren't for me, she would have been dead long ago. She avoided my gaze, but her finger pointed at my hand with an unnerving certainty. "Perhaps." The man with glasses spoke again, his voice devoid of any warmth. "This time, like before, once someone dies, the train will stop." The words, like a demon's whisper, instantly ignited the brutality burning in everyone's hearts. "Yes, it must be her. Kill her, let her die. It's all her fault. Finish her off." Faces, young, old, male, female, were all contorted into the same shape. Countless hands reached toward me. They wanted to kill me, to offer me up as a sacrifice, to buy themselves a thin chance at life. She was right. Sinners should not be forgiven. Observation complete. Verification confirmed. All targets may be cleared. Everyone froze, clearly unable to grasp the meaning of my words. All confirmed? Then I'll activate the purge. The attendant's sweet voice chimed, tinged with the glee of someone about to clock out. I sighed. "You're right after all. If I told you so. Isn't it always like that? I've been on this route so many times. The script never changes. The observation is just for show." She sounded a little pleased with herself as she hit the clear program. "Sure. After all, it's my first time doing this job." I couldn't help complaining. "You know, I used to be an NPC at Ningyong Station. This is my first time as an observer. Come to think of it, since they pulled me in to cover a shift last minute, shouldn't there be overtime pay? I was wondering earlier why this train to Ningyong was so early. Didn't expect they'd have me working overtime. If you ask me, the position is totally redundant. The results are the same. They might as well save the money and give me a bigger raise." "Joe, don't worry, you won't miss out on overtime pay." "Oh, and didn't you at first think that wiping it all away wasn't very good?" "Those people upstairs are the same. They're always worried about making a mistake, so they insist on adding this observation step to feel reassured, you know." Bah. Everyone finally grew tired of our oblivious conversation. "What purge? What are you talking about? You're not a passenger." "Gee, of course I'm not a passenger. I'm just an unlucky overtime worker, forced to observe whether these damned souls still have any chance of salvation." "Leo, At first I thought maybe some people didn't deserve death. Maybe there was still room for mercy. What a pity. They proved with their actions that what kind of good person could be chosen by this train. Hopelessly beyond saving. No one is innocent. No one is deserving. Ooh. That passenger rules book was meant for the staff from the start. Of course passengers wouldn't have one. Sue, you said there usually wouldn't be emergencies, that you only needed to look at the first page, I said, curling my lip. Who expected we'd just happen to run into one, she replied. And besides, I did show you the rest afterward. Son, no, no. Girl number 68 collapsed to her knees in hysterics. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Please, please spare me. Arr. The other passengers, realizing their fate, began to beg for mercy. Too late. The purge program had already been initiated. Ling? In an instant, everyone was reduced to pools of blood. The announcement sounded. Ladies and gentlemen, this train will shortly arrive at its terminus, Ningyong Station. Please gather your carry-on belongings and watch the gap between the platform and the train when disembarking. Thank you for your attention and support during the journey. We look forward to serving you on your next trip. The train came to a halt, and I waved goodbye to the attendant. I stepped out of the doorway and looked at the sign reading Ningyong Station. Ugh, I still have to go to work. This is the 102nd time I've regretted choosing a job 1,000 miles from home.